Hello, everybody. Welcome to Self-Caro Tarot. This is to be the segment. There was a brief short on the channel the other day where the self-care wheel spun, landed on mental self-care, and then when I rolled the dice, I got the number 1, which on the list coincided with reading as a form of self-care. Before we do the reading about mental self-care and reading, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about what reading can do for us. Consistently reading can strengthen connections in your brain. It improves your memory and concentration. It can even help people live longer. Reading can reduce stress levels, prevent age-related cognitive issues, and it says, make sure to read more if you can. Set a time every day to pick up a book. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, it can make a huge difference. Now, I know personally some of us with different health problems can have issues or challenges with reading. So most of the statistics that apply to reading a book, a hardback book or a Kindle book with your eyes, still apply to if you're listening to a book on tape, if you're blind and you're reading it with Braille. It's just the biggest, most important part is that it's listening to or reading a story that has no other media attached. It's not a television blaring imagery into your eyeballs. It doesn't have a lot of music attached. It is the story without any frills, so that your brain can make connections and memories, so that it can visualize on its own without being told anything about the visual plane, and so it can think and cipher without being led by something on a screen. More thing about reading. Reading can allow us to experience more sensations. There was a study that was conducted at Emory University, and it talks about reading increasing the activity in the brain's central sulcus, which controls our motor skills. If we read a passage, for example, where there is a protagonist walking along a path, our brain can make us feel as though we're on the walk ourselves, if we are utilizing that. And then there's something called grounded cognition. That's a concept that proves that reading actually puts you in someone else's shoes through brain biology. So that's cool. Also, it can make us more empathetic. They say literary fiction readers have a higher ability to empathize with other people, with their emotions and thoughts, than the people that read mainly nonfiction. Fiction readers can imagine themselves in all types of situations, which means they can look at a fellow human and say, hey, I might be able to sort of imagine what you're going through. And it increases, it's a way of practicing empathy. They, of course, provide a lot of mental stimulation, and stimulating your brain regularly, no matter how you choose to do it, can help slow down Alzheimer's and dementia. It's just like, how we exercise our bodies, theoretically, for some of us, but how we move our bodies, it's like moving our brains. Also, things in this category can also be puzzles and word games, math games, things that you figure out in your head rather than observe. Reading can reduce stress. It's easier for your brain to relax and temporarily ease itself into another world when it's in practice of doing that. Because it's a combination. Reading, part of the way it works, sometimes better than television, is you do have to focus a certain amount to read the words on the page. which sort of gives your mind a focal point and a stillness that then sort of eases your stress and allows you to sort of step further into the pages of the book. And of course, it can improve your memory because it's operating and exercising again more of your brain functions. So those are some of the things that reading can do for us. In this reading about reading, what I'm going to be asking when I'm shuffling earlier, pre-shuffling some things, and then of course we'll shuffle now, I was asking the guides and angels and helpers to help us in this reading to either give good suggestions about things we can do or place in our environment that can help to stimulate and send energy waves to our brain and stimulate it in similar ways to reading that can work on any one of those aspects that reading can provide us, such as stress relief and relaxation and all of that stuff we just talked about. So in this reading, I'm hoping that we'll see, first of all, just some suggestions about either things that can sort of help work on the same things in our brain and our mental space as reading, or offers support and advice about what's best for us to read at this time. We're going to be asking for recommendations. Hey, what should the majority of the collective viewers be reading about or seeking information about? What should they be doing in the realm of reading? What are your suggestions? And what are some other ways we can do to support a reading habit? So I don't know what we'll see in this reading, but those are some of the goals that I have set for it. And so I think we should get started. Boop, 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 boop. I'm going to remove my friend's amethyst. And this is a blue-green fluorite. It's just one of my favorites. I just love her so much. Okay. Like always, I'm actually going to start off with my color cards as I energize the cards, and I'm going to shuffle them again even though they're well shuffled. I'm just going to ask that we get a color, a vibration that can help stimulate our brains in the ways that reading can potentially do, and that can potentially maybe be something we add to our environment while we are reading to enhance everything that reading supplies. So let's see what their color suggestions are. Please let everything that we discovered today be for the greater and higher good of anyone that comes across it. Please give us some ideas of color energy that can enhance the topic at hand, which is reading, which is self-care, which is mental self-care through the act of reading. Thank you so much. Let's see. Okay, so for sure, green, which makes sense. It makes a great deal of sense, actually. Green is a healing color, like if you're talking about aura work or energy work. It also is one of the colors that represent the heart chakra. Let's get another color or two. Oh, they were ready to fall. Green, blue, and yellow. So we've got this green here, number 7737. These are all colors I like. This one is what? Swedish blue. That's really pretty too. And this is Freesia yellow. Did we see Freesia yellow on our last reading? I think we might have. That's interesting. They're really pushing that yellow, because I have shuffled and shuffled again, segregated the deck into chunks, shuffled those chunks. So it's interesting. So yeah, this is definitely heart chakra if you're talking about, chakral things, and healing if you're talking about just general color therapy. This is throat chakra work here, for sure, for absolute certain, which is, self-expression and speaking truths and things like that. It's also, if you're talking about just general color therapy, something that can induce and bring about a lot of peace and calm. And just as green is sort of supposed to be healing, I think it's interesting that this is sort of a greeny blue. It's not quite turquoise, but it's still a greeny blue. So it is peaceful and healing, right? And then we've got this Freesia yellow again. And this would be sort of in sort of our mid chakral areas, sort of get into the yellow, orange, reds in the middle there. And at least I think I'm speaking right. I'm going to confirm that. My brain is telling me to double, triple check, which I think is interesting, but sorry for the pause, but I want to make sure I'm correct. Yeah, okay. I was correct. I shouldn't. I do know these things. I should believe myself more often, but so should everyone. It's the solar plexus chakra if you're talking about chakral things, which is about sort of confidence and self-control. It's in the areas of self-worth and self-esteem. And it can help do work on the central nervous system, pancreas, digestive tract, that kind of stuff. So that makes sense, this combination of things. To me, this would lead me to believe that we're going to see things that either we're going to be getting, if I had to guess, we won't know until the cards fall, but if I had to guess, we're going to get either recommendations for a bunch of maybe self-help or self-promotion, or maybe a lot of fiction. Sorry for the silence, I was listening. But, I don't think silence will hurt anyone here. So these are our colors we're going to start with. I'm just going to slide them up here. Have our little friends be here on our little reading platform, like that. Move these over to the side. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Cat Pierce Wandering Star Tarot deck. This is what the back looks like. These are all pre-shuffled, but I'm going to shuffle again. I'm going to ask, on the topic of mental self-care, specifically in the category of reading, or in the benefits of reading, what suggestions can you offer us about how to best pursue this line of self-care at this time? This time meaning whenever a person comes to find this content for them, what would be the recommendation? Oops, we're dropping a lot of stuff here. Okay, what do we have here? We have the Fool, the Page of Cups, and the Page of Wands. So definitely, this is talking initially about some light reading. Like initially, I think maybe this will lead me to say we'll ask for 3 different categories, for advice for 3 different categories in which to pursue reading at this time. So this for sure would be about fiction, about maybe innocence, romance, sort of a positive, uplifting type descriptive story. Definitely needs to have sort of a young protagonist that's going to teach us. Here, I need to show you the cards. Here's the Fool in the Cat Pierce deck. The Page of Cups. And the Page of Wands. So if I was going to interpret this into, hey, what should we read, and in what sort of category, I would definitely say this is an invitation to read nonfiction, to pursue uplifting stories that are perhaps when someone is at the beginning of some form of journey. So probably a youthful protagonist, to get that sort of energy. If what we're trying to do is stimulate our brain and to experience some of the things that the characters do, we're looking for stories, fiction stories that start off on a young person's adventure in life, so that we can experience and remember/remind ourselves the excitement of beginning something anew, the excitement of not knowing what the world holds for you, the excitement of feeling those first rushes of freedom, or affection or love, those first rushes of information that you learn as you step into adulthood that you're very excited about, and then a story that moves into learning how to navigate and communicate within that world. fiction stories that come to mind that I love that would fall into this category would be some of maybe Jane Austen's works. They often start with a young woman either stepping into adulthood or seeking to. The only one that sort of doesn't qualify stepping into adulthood really is Persuasion, and she is sort of stepping back into the fresh feelings of love and getting sort of a chance to recreate some of the happenings of youth, though by far she's not an old person. But so the types of books that I think about that I love that fall into this fiction category are things like that, like Jane Austen stories and Little Women and Alice in Wonderland for sure. Things that are light and rooted in the newness of experience. Trying to think of more modern books. The Devil Wears Prada, right? That's someone stepping into a new world and learning a lot of new things. There are certainly heavier books about that stuff too. But this definitely is saying, hey, read a young romantic fiction, a young adventure fiction. So, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, or even honestly, things like Girl Interrupted or The Bell Jar, even though they talk about some depressing topics in the middle, it is still about young women first seeking excitement, sort of falling apart, and then putting themselves back together again in a new way. You'll know Harry Potter, right? He's stepping in to himself as an adolescent, and the whole series is about growing up. And while there's a lot of cool magical things and metaphors and things, the basis of this is a young person coming into their adulthood. So there's so many other books. I don't know why my brain is just like, nah, but I will think about more and maybe we can literally ask. But so our first recommendation definitely here is fictional, light, easy, adventurous, romantic in nature. And, based on what we just learned about what reading can do for you, certainly that is about being able to step into their shoes and experience the joy, the freedom, the excitement. So that is definitely sort of almost a meditation practice or a practice in joy. And, then it can also help us in our day-to-day life remember to look for the newness in every moment, even if we're sort of feel like we're living the same day over and over. Sorry, I have spirit talking and my own brain, so there's a lot of stammering. But, it can encourage us to look for the newness, even if we feel like we're living the same day over and over and over again. You just look for the one change, the butterfly that flew by out the window, the new person that texted you, or somebody you encounter in chat, whatever it is. They're wanting you to spend some time in one of your favorite fantasy fictional places, and they're wanting you to read about it. I always overtalk, but hey, what are you gonna do? Okay, now I'm going to use the Tarot of the Divine to get another recommendation of a type of, our second recommendation for the type of literature we could maybe be consuming at this time that would be best for our development, learning, caring for ourselves. And this is would be a great deck for this, because it's a deck where every single card represents either a written down folklore or fable, or represents some sort of oral history that has been passed down through many different types of cultures. So, Spirit, can you please help us and give us a suggestion of a second sort of category of book for us to consume at this time to help work on that part of our brain and to help care for ourselves through the act of reading? Okay, I see. Thank you so much. Let's see what we have. Let's see what we have here. Oh my goodness. So let me show you the cards first. Sorry. So this is the back of the card. It's this particular deck. It's just beautiful. And the first card that came was the 5 of Coins right here. I'm sorry for the noise in the background. People don't listen to me when I say I'm going to do something. The 10 of Cups here. And the 2 of Cups. Now, based on the vibes I get from this and what I'm hearing, sort of some of the people in my guidance system discussing, is this could be a fiction or a nonfiction story, but they're encouraging the reading of love stories, but in a very specific way. They're encouraging that we read something about a story of love between maybe unexpected or other groups that are different from ourselves. So by that I mean, and many groups that have had specific societal struggles in order to love. So I think, of the LGBTQ plus, the alphabet mafia. So I think about love stories that are either fiction or nonfiction that are in that category, or perhaps stories that are fiction or nonfiction about people that are culturally very different, that we're not supposed to be together, people that are forbidden to be together for some sort of rule, or for racism affected stories, caste system affected stories, poverty line type stories. So they're encouraging that we read about a great love story, but it's going to be a love story of a group that is other than the standard accepted societal romance. First of all, there's just a need for that to be experienced and appreciated in all sorts of things, in cinema and TV, and there just needs to be wider, broader representation in general. But to me, this makes sense that since we are reading for ourselves, but we're reading for expansion too, that we are going to try to read about something about a love that can overcome a lot of trauma, about a love that is so strong that the parties involved have had to be very brave to even pursue the relationship with one another, depending on the time in history that that happened. And because that's so real, I believe it could be fiction or nonfiction. You can choose your favorite modern day, even some of the older gay couples, right? Um, you could choose people that are supposed to be in arranged marriages but have refused. You could choose older stories about people marrying across race lines, across faith lines. Um, I think it would do two things for any reader. Anybody that has any sort of closed minded issues around any of these topics that maybe they're not even aware of, but just based on the cultural system where they grew up, it would create some mental expansion. But also, it's great to learn that love can overcome anything. We all know that, but it's good to be reminded of that. And it's very inspirational to read the stories of the people that have decided to um, follow their hearts, no matter what kind of dangerous situation that might posture them into. So, yes, so that's their second reading recommendation, is to read about love against all odds. And, you know, I listed some groups in which that could apply to romantic love, but of course all of those groups could apply to friendships too, you know, having friendships with people that were not considered acceptable for whatever stupid reason, or you know, an odd pairing where a mother adopts a child. There's so many different types of love. A love story between groups that are not supposed to intermingle according to rigid and ignorant societal rules at any given time. I can think of a lot of stories, but I may, in the information box, list for all of these categories just some of my favorites. And if you would love to list some of yours ideas for some of these categories, books that you love, this would be great. It could almost be like a 2-minute book club where people swap ideas about what could qualify here. So far, definitely, it's wanting, clearly the reading is lent itself to opening ourselves up to love in a youthful, adventurous, fictitious way, and then to step forward and examine the love of maybe a culture or a group that we have not been a part of, to further our understanding, right, about many things. And, you know, it's just probably would do so much good for the brain to remember that everyone is lovable, and everyone has a group of people or a person that is destined to care about them, and always has and always will. And in many cases, they come from unexpected places. That's good to be reminded of that. I'm going to use both of these decks to pull a couple of cards to see about our third and final book category recommendation here. This is an interesting topic. I wasn't sure how a reading would go. It's a little bit clunky, but, you know, I'm just feel like they are here with me. And so I trust that, you know, this is maybe not like as exciting as I don't know, reading true crime or doing love or sex readings or whatever, but I think it's the quiet aspects of our lives that we sometimes forget to nurture, or that we don't openly discuss, and because it just feels like, well, that's just my everyday average whatever. But we can learn so much from knowing what other people are doing with their everyday thoughts and their time, and to see what's working for people and what's not, and how we can better ourselves through very simple practices. Interesting. Okay. Gonna see if I can get a couple more cards, but this is actually, I got 4 cards from this deck. Could we please have 4 complementary cards? I don't know that they need clarifying, but complementary, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Shuffling, shuffling, yeah. Shuffling. Ooh. It's the shuffling song. It's the shuffling song. Okay. Take a look at what I have going on here, and then I will show you what we have going on here. This is interesting. This doesn't surprise me too much because I know a lot of the people that are here watching, and a lot of the people here around in this community thus far are definitely creatives. I think many of them due to either just personal interest, or a lot of us in these groups tend to have chronic illnesses, be on disability long term, but have big dreams for being able to still do something wherein we can help the world and pursue our passions and still live a very fulfilling life with our physical restrictions and perhaps our bodies preventing us from doing a standard 9 to 5, because when you are chronically ill, that doesn't mean your brain has gone away or your passion or your creativity, but sometimes your body is not reliable to keep like a standard 9 to 5, and contract work and self-owned and self-propelled businesses are sometimes really good options and opportunities. So this doesn't surprise me. So we have received here the World, the Eight of Wands, I didn't even read, Nine of Pentacles, and the Page of Pentacles. Okay, so we're going to talk about that stuff first. So this is definitely making a recommendation to a non-fiction type of reading, and this is definitely something, that's the reason why I started talking about work or passion projects, ways to earn income doing things that you love or helping others that you love and that kind of thing. So this is definitely recommending a non-fiction piece of reading or style of reading, and it's definitely talking about either if you are not aware, if you're feeling a pull or a drive to open a self-made business or self-run project, or to try desperately and earn income from home when you're limited. But mostly I think this is for people who are either looking for their next great creativity based business idea, or at least money maker, or who already know where their passion lies and they're trying to figure out how to take their passion and make it into something that can provide abundance and that can be functional. So this is definitely nonfiction recommendation, and it would be probably in and around the topics of either reading a book. This came up the other day, so I think that's interesting. There's a book called What Color is Your Parachute, where it asks a lot of questions that help someone who's not quite sure what they want to do sort of narrow down where they would like to pursue generally a creative work type venture. But also the fact that it's the wands and pentacles, thoughts and money and abundance and things like that. There probably is also a lot of reading about how to, so you've got a great product that you make or create, or you're an artist. Here are some, ideas. So it's books about how to take your passion and turn it into business. So it would be books about how to build a website, books about how to utilize social media to promote the selling of your products or services or whatever, or books about how to take all of the things that you're good at, this beautiful, what seems like a mixed bag of talents, and put it all together to make one cohesive business. So it's interesting. It's definitely nonfiction about business, about how to open and run a business of your own. And it seems like half of it, based on what I keep hearing, is about discovering, exactly how you want your product to be, or product line or service line. Like you sort of have a general idea, but you're trying to figure out how to make it different from the standard offering in whatever category. And then it's also talking about the very practical, here's how you can get a starter website. Here is one of the best ways to do marketing when you have no money. Here are some of the best ways to start spreading information about your business. Here are some ideas about how to price your services, how to keep track of things for bookkeeping, so starter business, creativity in the how to start a business in the creative field, or how to start a digital business. That's what this stuff is talking about. And interestingly enough, these support cards sort of line up with some of the fears that might come with pursuing this kind of stuff. A fear of not having enough money to sustain yourself, a fear that it would be too emotionally draining, or that you're afraid to sort of put yourself out there, because a lot of times when you're putting your creative ventures out there, it's like putting your heart on the line. A fear that you'll be going it alone. So while these are all valid concerns and I understand why they popped up, I'm not going to show them very closely, because this whole thing is meant to keep us moving forward. So I guess I would say maybe these cards here are here to say, if you maybe are fearful, you might also pursue books about, how to be brave. I'm sure there are books about how to be brave and take the leap into betting on yourself, right? I'm sure there are books out there like that. Okay, so I'm gonna shuffle just my elements cards here a little bit, and see what the recommendation, what element we should consider and work on and focus on as we are working on these aspects of self-care on this particular line of interest here. And a whole bunch fell. I need to shuffle better. Okay. One more time. Okay. There we go. We got air. Air, and it makes sense. You know, air is, if you're talking about tarot, air is swords, air is thoughts and thought patterns. And so since we're talking about, you know, mental self-care, brain care via reading, it makes sense that air would be something that turns up. On this particular card, it recommends some things that you can do to help strengthen, enhance, and support the air, you know, allowing more of the air energy and air elements into your life. They recommend certain yoga poses. If you are somebody that does yoga or does a little bit of stretching, you might look into the cobra, up dog, upward facing dog, and bridge poses. The sense that air, of the five senses, is it's touch, right? So that, you know, do with that what you will. It's making me think of like doing sort of scalp massage and pressure point massage to alleviate stress and anxiety in and around the areas that we're talking about. And yeah, so air is our friend here in our mental pursuits. I guess that's not really much of a surprise, though. Going to ask about the chakras. The chakra cards that give chakral recommendations, as well as crystal stone energy recommendations to support the work that we do in and around these topics. Okay. Oh, flipped out. Interesting. Yeah. So I'm just going to read one of the cards because they both were sacral chakra. Sacral chakra, it says, passion, turn your fear of change into excitement for change. And one of the supportive stones for that could potentially be tiger eye stone. This is the card here. This is an up-close photograph of tiger eye. That's really up close, though. Now, it's interesting that it's sacral chakra because we got that yellow color earlier that coincides chakra-wise with the sacral chakra. And, yeah, passion. Turn your fear of change into excitement for change. And that, to me, makes sense based on this reading, because I wasn't sure necessarily how to approach this topic. It's interesting to me that they're giving us sort of a path, right? Turn your fear of change into passion for change. Well, even just like the topic, the reading, topical reading, and recommendations, they progress into that, right? Start off with a young person on an adventure that's sort of familiar to us, a piece of fiction that's comforting, but also reminds us of the newness of stepping into the world and experiencing it for the first time, and those are big changes, but those are sort of a romantic, exciting view of big changes, right? Then the next step is to read a piece of fiction or nonfiction about people that are stepping into things they love and into relationships they love with people they love against societal norms and against tougher odds. So they've stepped us in. They're like, hey, change is exciting and new. Change is something you can romanticize, and it can make your brain feel good. And hey, now we're going to tell you about change when it's a little scarier. But it still is a story about someone else, but it can really inspire you and make you feel braver, because if they can do these things, you can do what you're wanting to do. And then, isn't it so interesting that the next set of cards after that is talking about nonfiction and a desire that you might have to begin something. To me, it looks like some sort of creative labor of love career type thing, but it's something that's important to you, that's close to your heart, that you love to do, and that you're fearful to get a start on and need advice. And so then it's giving advice about how to, it's recommending to read things that are very practical about step-by-step aspects of pursuing that. And it's also advising to read things to verify and connect your interests and skill sets into a more cohesive vision. And so I just think this turned out to be, I didn't expect this at all. I think this is interesting. They really did a beautiful job. Spirit loves us, even when I'm sitting here doing a silly reading about reading books for brain elasticity or whatever. They love us, and it's fascinating to me how they are, even in the silly reading, stepping us very gently towards the change that we all are hoping for, but we are afraid to make. While simultaneously giving us offerings about how to care for ourselves on a brain level. But the category was mental. It wasn't just brain, right? And having a job, career, passion project in your life that you love is already amazing, but then having it start being successful, lucrative, something that you can do every day that you love, that can also help support you and your family, that's big, important stuff. And so this was an interesting combination of here's how to work on, brain stuff, but mentally, here's like a 3-step way to ease yourself into thinking about change and being less fearful about it, learning about people who've been able to manifest and then bravely pursue change even when they are afraid, and then them revealing, hey, I know there's things you want to do here, and let's now start getting the practical advice to make it happen. If they can do it, and the youngins can be so excited about it, what is stopping you? I think this is interesting. I'm always so amazed that they can take my dumb ideas and really present for you something that is like a dear spirits that are in physical, we love you, please listen kind of letter. Okay, so the last bit of rambling I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle the cards to get a mood recommendation for supporting this work. Spirit, thank you for surprising us, giving us nice recommendations about how to self-care, and teaching us that the ultimate form of self-care is to embrace the things that we love and that we're excited about doing, and to just start doing them already, to give ourselves the pleasure and joy of doing them, but showing us and encouraging us how to then pursue that in a more serious, real, practical way. What a beautiful way to work on our work and care for our brains and their elasticity and our compassion through reading, but then also to talk about our mental, which was the category, well-being via our fears about trying new things and really going for the thing that's one of the things that is most important for us. And I should say this certainly to me read as a business, but if you're seeing this and everything resonates except for the fact that it's a business, if it's a person that you want in your life, that did come up here, right? So whatever it is, the new thing that you're looking to add, as long as it's not something that hurts someone else, right? It could very much be about that too. They amaze me. Can you please give us advice on a mudra that we can practice to help support us in our brave practice of mental self-care, with reading as one of the tools that is used by ourselves to help soothe, develop, manifest, and realize loving ourselves on a small day in, day out level and in a big going for our dreams kind of way. Can you please offer a suggestion? Let's see here. Interesting. Okay, so we got the Achala Agni Mudra. This is number 1, purifying. Okay, so it can assist with digestion, which again is in the solar plexus area and has a lot to do with like stress and things. Balance and confidence. Now, they could mean physical balance, but they also could mean life balance and confidence. It talks about the benefits of this being that it's energizing for the body. It balances your digestion, directs breath and energy into the digestive organs and into your midsection and into those chakras that live there, which again, the sacral chakra lives there. It helps to instill clarity, positive self-esteem, and life direction. It can also assist in releasing toxins that can cause disease. It's a fire element, which also makes sense because we're trying to put a fire under our passions and our forward motion towards them as a form of loving ourselves. And so I'm going to read how they describe to do it, and then I'll show you. Curl all of the fingers inward like fists, with the thumbs resting on top. Extend the index fingers up to touch at the tips. Lay thumbs over the middle finger joints, touching at the inside. Allow the knuckles of the middle ring and pinky fingers to touch. Bring the hands just in front of, oh my goodness, the solar plexus. Relax the shoulders. So curl all of the fingers inward like fists with the thumbs resting on top. Extend the index fingers up to touch at the tips. Lay thumbs over the middle finger joints, touching at the inside tips, and allow the knuckles of the middle ring and pinky fingers to touch. Hold on here. Just making sure that I'm doing this right. Now you're going to see me doing it upside down, but this is it. I've got my thumbs going up towards my middle finger knuckles. I've got the knuckles of my middle ring and pinky fingers touching, the tips of my thumbs and the tips of my index fingers touching. It looks like this. I have to do it upside down so you can see it, right? Here are all the knuckles touching and the index fingers, right? Then you bring your thumb up where your middle finger knuckles are and bring the tips of them together, right? Then when you hold it in front of yourself, this mudra, you hold it over in front of your solar plexus chakra. You can even rest it against your solar plexus chakra. So relax, and just place it, sort of in that area between your diaphragm and your belly button, right above your belly button, right below your diaphragm. And you can either hold it in front or again, make contact and hold it there. And they recommend, as you're doing this, that you make sure that you're sitting either crisscross applesauce, or if you're a yogi type person, that you are doing, lotus, and that for sure you're relaxing your shoulders. It's something I talked about last time. One of the best ways to do that is to first make sure your sits bones, aka your butt bones, are sinking into the surface of where you sit. If you are physically limited and you can't sit on the floor crisscross applesauce, you just sit in a chair with your legs in front of you, right? But you make sure you feel your sits bones, pressing into the seat, trying to keep your hips even so you feel each of basically your butt bones making even contact with the surface below you. And you make sure that your back is sort of straight. So instead of having it arched back or slumped forward, you make sure you sort of feel where the tip of your tailbone is, and redirect your hips until your tailbone is basically pointing straight down as if it's going to be a root and you're a tree. So your sits bones and tailbones are both, straight into the surface you are sitting on. Then you always take a deep breath in through your nose, and as you exhale, you sink the roots, the sits bones and the tailbone, metaphorically deeper in. You raise your chest and anything from your rib cage on upwards, and then relax back down, which has sort of straightened your spine from that rooted point upwards. Then you bring your shoulder blades sort of together, like you just move your shoulders backwards to move your shoulder blades together, like you're trying to make them touch. You take another deep breath, and then when you exhale, you sort of release the tension in your shoulder blades and allow them, while they're sort of still close together, to move lower down your back. Immediately, no matter what state you are in physically, this releases a lot of the shoulder muscles across the tops of your shoulders, around the base of your neck, and it also opens your chest, opens your heart areas, and your breathing. So that's why it's always so important, no matter sort of what you're working on, really, to have a rooted bottom area, an elongated spine, and to have, your shoulder blades going closer to each other and then relaxing down your spine, because now you have a straight line of energy so that your energy can move around as it needs, so that as you breathe, your oxygen can reach all of these points in a sort of a straighter line. Your chest is open, your heart is open, your breathing is easier, all of those things. And then you take the mudra that we just learned and you put it in front of your solar plexus area. And then the focus or mantra that they sort of recommend in this case is subtle balance and purity guides me confidently forward. Subtle balance and purity guides me confidently forward. So for sure, it's talking about, making sure that you're mentally well and, on an even, balanced keel, and that the things that you are working towards, in this case, this progression of books that we're using to help our brain, but also the concept of trying new and exciting things and supporting ourselves on new adventures. The purity would be that you are really working towards something you genuinely want. It's not something to please anyone else. It's not done because it's expected or societal. It's the thing that you want to do, that you have always wanted to do, or for some time have felt you wanted to do. And so purity works here because it's saying, hey, don't play, don't posture, just balance and allow the purity of your desire to guide you. And then it says confidently forward, right? So don't be afraid, don't be ashamed, don't be worried that people don't like it. Sometimes we do things because they're going to bring us success, and that's great. And sometimes even we do these passion things pursuing, certain types of success. But there's also things that you can do that maybe don't turn out to be very lucrative financially, but that are so good for you because they make you happy. You're doing something that you love to do, and just through that act, you're loving yourself more than you do on a lot of other moments when you are pursuing other things because they're expected of you, or they're just standard everyday things you have to, quote unquote, have to do. No, this is something that's for you. And a lot of times in the world, we know the story that if somebody's pursuing their passion, eventually they will be successful because the love comes through and they figure out how to piece together the love with more practical things. But it's the braveness of allowing yourself to have the affection and passion for something privately, and then to start publicly saying, hey, this is something I love to do, and then to bet on yourself enough to bring it forward and offer it to others to share in the experience or the product or whatever. So subtle balance and purity guides me confidently forwards is what they recommend here. We could also say something like, as I hold this posture, please help me remember that loving myself is one of the most important things I can do. In fact, I dare say it is the most important thing, because loving yourself is the way if you can love yourself when you know all of the things that you judge yourself harshly about, that you don't judge others on, and if you can find yourself some of the best company that you could have, you're really onto something there. And that love, that makes you so solidly feel like you don't need to seek false affections, and it leads you to very genuine people and places, projects and opportunities, because you're no longer seeking attention or some type of love other people's way. And if for some reason they don't love you, they don't seek to fill, temporary whatever, it doesn't matter, because you already know that someone loves you, you do, and someone knows you better than anyone else, and that's you. and someone is proud of you, and that's you. And when you have that, you stop chasing all of those other empty things. And also the universe, God, angels, they notice. They say, hey, they're really ready now. They're really ready for us to send the next great whatever, their direction, because they know what to do with it now. So subtle balance and purity guides me confidently forwards. Or I love myself enough to be here alone with myself in a quiet space, in a quiet energy. And I love myself enough to use this time to breathe and focus on all of the things that I truly, deeply love and wish to pursue further. Well, I wasn't certain necessarily if this would go a cohesive direction. I thought, well, if it's scattered information, it still is on the topic of using reading to at least help neuroplasticity, and then when I read more about how reading can help empathy, I thought, well, if this reading winds up being everywhere and nowhere, at least we'll be working on those things which are still very important. But the fact, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Spirit has given us a beautiful pattern and a beautiful pathway. I should not be surprised. I'm sorry, I'm apologizing to them that I didn't think that this would lead into a pattern that would be understandable, but it certainly did. I've been afraid that taking something so small and breaking it down into something smaller might be too difficult or too boring, and maybe this was boring, but I am so happy, though, that they are really giving us game plans where we start off with a small idea, and they say, hey, there's no idea too small that we can't do something with. And isn't that inspirational? No matter how small your thought is, you could really grow it into something huge in your life. And when you work on it in a positive way with the intention of self-care and self-love, gosh, the smallest thought, if you keep it positive and nurture it, the smallest act of care, if you follow it all the way from the first impulse to do it throughout all of the different paths you can take once you start that journey, so many things can open with that one tiny, tiny thing. Anyway, I love everyone. I hope the background noise hasn't been too problematic. I don't know till I watch this back. Hopefully this is going to be viable, because I really appreciate the work that Spirit has done here. And I really appreciate you joining me for Self-Care Tarot. And I'm going to continue to try and pursue these small things, because I wasn't sure when Spirit said, hey, let's do this, if there was anything to it. But I find every time I film one of these that I'm really surprised with exactly how much content, and well, a lot of it's my rambling, and I'm sorry about that, but how much can come out of one small thought. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well, and I send you love and light, and look forward to the next time.